Okay. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here with me this afternoon. I appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to talk with us about the blueprint coming up on September 17th on Thursday. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, what brought you here, and why you wanted to be a part of the blueprint.
Yeah, so my name is Tiffany, and I am a Board Certified Behavior Analyst. And so I do behavioral therapy for individuals who have autism mostly, but really a lot of neurodivergence. So I started my own practice in 2024 called Divergent Behavioral Services because I also find myself in that camp. So I was diagnosed with ADHD when I turned 35. And it's like all the stars kind of aligned, and it was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. So I feel like that gives me the ability to kind of speak multiple languages, is usually what I tell people. So I kind of understand environments and the things that people who may not be able to communicate how they see the world, but I tend to have the words to be able to communicate it. So really, I think what makes me want to be involved with the blueprint, is that I feel like I have something to share in that, because I know I'm not alone in that diagnosis or how I see the world. And regardless of if, the way you see things is because of a diagnosis or not, it's okay if we all have a different perspective. And so what I found over the last couple of years, that it's really empowering to be able to stand up and say, no, that's not exactly correct, or I see it like this, and that there's value in that. And when I've done that, other people follow.
I appreciate your saying that. I feel like there are so many things out there, especially in social media, where it's take this quiz to see if you're ADHD, or the top 3 people that people with, this particular neurodivergence have. So I appreciate you coming from an actual clinical standpoint and being able to speak to this, especially as someone who was diagnosed later as an adult and as a woman,
Yeah.
which I know is kind of a change in the field, or I feel like maybe it's just now being noticed more in women. Can you speak a little to that?
Yeah. So I'm always careful, and I give the disclaimer because I can't clinically diagnose. But from personal experience, I kind of went down this rabbit hole when I was diagnosed, because I've worked in the field for 20 years. And so I did not see that in myself. And I was kind of blown away by the fact that someone is telling that to me, because I'm like, oh, I should have seen that, right? There's that like idea of, why didn't I notice that sooner? But in reality, I was a kid that, I kind of textbook of what we see with women who had ADHD, is that in the 90s, when I was a kid and going to school, at that point, they weren't doing research on girls. They believed that ADHD or ADD was something that only boys would have, and it had to be that hyperactive component. But for me, that was more internalized. And so I have those perfectionistic traits, and I'm very critical of myself. And so those are things that tend to be overlooked, I think, for a lot of women and girls, because if we don't become the squeaky wheel, right, then we don't get that attention. And so they assume we're fine. And so we can do that pretty well until we can't. And so in my mind, the increase in diagnoses now for women, I think, is very validating to hear that we might have been struggling, but just because we held it together doesn't mean that it wasn't hard or isn't still hard.
Right. And so many times as girls, young women, we are told to behave, and we learn society norms for us are a little different. So it is that quiet place, which then shows up later in life in business. So how does this relate then to being a woman in business, and to some of your clients that you may work with? Where do you see that overlap?
Yeah. I think I see that overlap quite a bit. I think first, one of the things that I've noticed is that by being able to employ other people, that the story that I have in terms of maybe having some difficulty of not fitting in to some other workplaces, not because I wasn't good at my job, but because I tend to have higher standards for myself and can be like in that category of this is right or wrong, and I'm going to err on the side of right. Um, but I'm not alone in that. And so being able to create an environment where it's safe to say that we may have those challenges, that's really important. And that's how we learn. Not all employers create that safe environment. And my experience has been that's especially true with women. We tend, I mean, I have been in experiences where I've been told that I was too emotional or I was too much. And it was really, I was passionate and being a strong advocate. And maybe, we can all learn different skills, but to be shamed for that didn't allow me to put forth my best effort. And so that's one of the things business wise that I'm really passionate about, kind of creating that. And I think sometimes that I think just being a woman in business is harder. My experience has been you get kind of discounted. And so you just have to kind of stand up for yourself a little bit more. And I've always been very like much better doing that for clients that I have, and not as
Yes.
good for myself. So by stepping out and working on my own, I've had to kind of view myself as another client. Like, what would I say to a client in this? I wouldn't say that that was okay or that thought, made sense. I've got to stand up and do that for myself too, because if I don't, no one else is going to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you said that it can be harder for women in business sometimes, yeah, it's so true because the system wasn't necessarily made for us. When we're still getting excited over certain things with pockets,
Right.
you know. So tell us a little bit about what people can expect to hear from you at the Women in Business Summit.
Yeah. So my kind of presentation is really kind of what I've been talking about, is the idea that we're built different. And that can be, I intentionally left it kind of that vague because I very much feel like everyone has something to bring to the table. And if we don't feel like we are safe enough or confident enough to bring that to the table, we're losing so much. And so, whether that's being neurodivergent in whatever space that or flavor that might be, um, we really need that. And so, to embrace whatever that different is and at whatever stage in life we are in, we need that to be able to live our best lives and be our true and authentic selves, because we might be able to kind of, just kind of go with the flow, but we may not be happy doing that. And so to embrace that and to be a confident and strong woman to say, no, I can do this, even if it doesn't look like how this person does it or this person does it. There's value in how I do it, not because it's perfect, because we can always learn and we can always change, but to really create that sense of empowerment and confidence that I have to remind myself every day. And so again, it's kind of what I talked about at the beginning, where I would love to be able to, when I say it out loud, I start to hear that other people have that same thing. And so maybe I can just be the voice that affirms the thoughts that you are thinking are true.
Yeah, I appreciate that you speak to the authenticity of it because also in several neurodivergent diagnoses, there's a lot of masking. And I think going along with what we were talking about as young girls, young women, the expectation of society to act a certain way, to be a certain way, and then that follows us. And then we tend to, some of us may take on those masking qualities where, oh, we saw this person do this, well, this must be how I'm supposed to be then, and this must be, and we don't really figure out our authentic selves until so much later. So I appreciate you bringing that and speaking on the authenticity of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people, and sometimes I have to remind myself, I that masking can be really hard. And so I always talk about it being like kind of a volume knob. Like sometimes, depending on what the situation is, I might have to turn down my different in that because I need to learn this is where I want to be. I'm getting something out of it, and that's the way I get what I need. But sometimes I need to turn that up because that's really who I am. And I need that authenticity to kind of get through. Or sometimes we just need to do it different. We don't need to keep doing the same thing that we've been doing for 30 years because that's the way it's always been done. And so it's really about kind of reading the room or the situation and what are my true goals and my intentions. And then how can I like turn that up or turn it down to meet my needs?
Yeah, that's great. So, are there any books or anything that you would suggest to people, anything that's been either meaningful to you, and it can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the field, but if there is something in your field, or if there's something that's just meaningful to you, a favorite book or anything like that?
Yeah. So I that's kind of a hard question because I feel like I went through this phase where graduate school kind of ruined reading for me because I had to do so much reading. But one of the books that I guess there's a couple. One that I often come back to, and I only read in pieces. I've still to this day not sat down and read front to back, is The Body Keeps the Score.
Ah, yes.
So I find myself just as life happens, I like go through and like look at the chapter that I need right then. Um, and so I think that that's always a good one, but you kind of have to be ready and in a good place to read it. Um, and I really love anything by Brene Brown. Um, so she is a social worker, writes a lot on shame and vulnerability and perfectionism. And so
Mhm.
um, it's hard to pick any one, but I love a lot of her books. And I feel like they take some of those higher concepts, like from The Body Keeps the Score, and make them a little more understandable and digestible in every day. Personally, I love when she does audiobooks because she'll narrate her own audiobooks. And so it's just like she's speaking to your soul. And so those are my favorite.
Yeah, I consume a lot of audiobooks. So if I ever tell somebody I read this, I've tried to start changing my language to I consumed this because it's usually audiobook.
Yeah. But it's whatever method works. And so that's also one of those things though, right? Where it's like, does it matter how we got through the book? Um, but sometimes we feel like, oh, maybe I was cheating in it because I didn't read it. I have a friend that will say that. I'm like, no, 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 no. We just, however works for your brain in that moment. Like I have to be able to do something else. Like that's how my ADHD presents a lot of times. So audiobooks are the best.
Yes, yes, my body needs to be doing something like laundry or dishes or whatever so that my brain can actually absorb some things. I
Yeah,
understand that
absolutely.
completely.
Yeah.
Um, Along those same lines, are there any quotes, mantras, anything like that that has stuck with you through life?
Um, yes. So I'm looking over because I actually have both of them hanging on walls in my office. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so again, this goes back to some Brene Brown. But there is a quote, originally it was from Theodore Roosevelt, called The Man in the Arena.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually have a print in my office that someone redid. So it says The Woman in the Arena. But it's a very long quote. The part that kind of sticks with me um, is the end where it says, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Mm,
And so it's really a long quote about whose opinions you let kind of take up space in your
yeah.
head. Because if you're not in that quote, if you're not in the arena, if you're not doing the work, then maybe your opinion isn't the one that matters because you don't know how hard it is or you don't know what I've gone through. Um, and so I think that's always a good one to kind of keep in mind. And so I had to get the one that says woman in the arena when I started my business because I felt like that was just fitting. So I have it where I can see it every day.
I love that.
And then the other one on the other side of my wall that is, so it's a Ruth Bader Ginsburg quote that
Uh-huh.
says, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
The notorious RBG.
Yes.
Yeah, I love both of those. Well, thank you so much for sharing those. Do you have anything else just in this last little time here that we have together? A personal invite to you from anyone that may be considering coming to the Blueprint, something that you would want to tell them to invite them for September 17th, Thursday at the Blueprint?
Yeah. I think that even if you are on the fence and you're not confident that that it would benefit you, that are those my people? I'm not sure. I think it's very much worth the time, like the investment of your time, because you never know what being in an environment like that, what that will spark in you. And it might not be something that looks like anyone else's, but it might just be the piece that you have that we didn't know we were missing. And so it's really something to consider as a good investment for yourself.
I like that. And I like that it might be the piece that you didn't know. Yeah, we never know who is that piece for us or what piece we may be for them,
Yeah.
that
You don't know if
together we
you
make
don't
a beautiful
try.
picture. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend with me here and to let everybody know about your presentation on Thursday, September 17th at the Blueprint. And we will see you there, if not before.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.